So this is Plinth. I briefly alluded, there's a lot going on. It's not just AI and fundraising. We have a whole free CRM for small charities and smaller CICs, basically anybody who needs to be able to report on the services they're delivering, which is probably most of you. And this is, the homepage. This is what you see. Keeps track of like your session, your attendances, how many of those are unique, numbers that typically funders need to see. So we keep that free, everything ticking along in the background. We started to get quite a few requests from small charities. Once again, that free user group that I mentioned, that finding funders and finding things they were eligible for was really challenging and taking up a lot of their time in addition to writing. And especially organizations that were new, only were volunteer run, maybe you worked Thursday and Friday. So people who were able to afford a full-time grant writer but still needed the funding to put on their events. So we created what we call Agent Pippin. Go ahead and you hit Find Funders. And right away, it's going to pull the information about my admittedly fake Tower Hamlets demo org from the Charity Commission, from the internet. That's just kind of going to do a big, wide sweep of lots of different things. So the search terms will pop up in a moment, but it'll be things like Tower Hamlets charity funding opportunities, London Community Foundation grants. So it's cast the net super, super wide in the beginning and saves you time from having to make that like really long spreadsheet of any potential funders. It's still searching, so I won't bother it. But if there's also a funder you know by name that you should be adding, maybe they don't publish things online, maybe you have a relational type funding, relationship, which doesn't make much sense, but if you know you're going to be invited to call, you can pop them in there. What I do, I'm going to say 93 potential funds is more than enough. I go ahead and hit next. Sometimes it gets, there we go. And this is where Plinth kind of really takes off because you can ask ChatGPT, can you find me all the funds in this area? But what's really nice is that we can then ask Pippin a few questions, explain what we're trying to accomplish, and it'll start to organize the funds on this side. If my internet connection was a bit better, you'd have a nice logo, but that's not the end of the world. So I'm going to go ahead and ask Pippin.
So for the purpose of the recording, Jess is typing, I'm looking for some funding for an after-school program for teens ages 12 to 16 that focuses on music education.
Yeah, thank you for reading that out loud, Joe. So I've sent that to Pippin. It's going to think about it a little bit and run through these funders on these sides. You'll see them kind of change and jump up and down. That's just it prioritizing. And Pippin said back to us, he says, okay, that's helpful. Bit stern there, Pippin. And this program is based in Tower Hamlets, where Tower Hamlets demo org is based. To start, I'm going to narrow down the list of funders that specifically mention young people, education, or Tower Hamlets. And I'll also mark funders that are going to be unlikely fit. Great. So I'd say, thank you. And yes, it will be in Tower Hamlets. And then you'd go ahead. Sorry, the live typing is always scary. So I said, thank you. And yes, it will be in Tower Hamlets. It's going to run for 6 weeks, and I'll need 4 salaries. I suppose I actually made that very cheap. So you can see it's gone through, it's reordered the funders, it's having a little think. And the idea is you can go back and forth with Pippin as often as you need until you've really kind of, defined your project. There's a decent chance that you all go into it really knowing what project you need. So your first message can be, I need this for this much money. But it's quite nice if you're still fleshing out your idea to chat back and forth. So I'll let him keep thinking. There we go. You can see he started to have a better idea of the fit. And now I'm getting asked a bit more targeted questions. So what are the specific goals of my music education program? And are there any specific instruments or musical styles that this program will focus on? So it's asking me questions like this, so it can then go into the John Lyons charity. And maybe they have, yep, exactly. They have a specific focus on education, so they're going to want to hear more about what's the end result of the music education program. So keep going back and forth. to be fair, did describe a fairly vague project. So I have lots of them that are a 5 out of 5 fit. Oh, Tower Hamlets cancel. Which is always fun. But if you need to, if you have too many 5s out of 5s, see, let me get down to 4s. You can go ahead and expand and just get a quick overview. Or you can pop to the website quickly to see, is this somebody we're aligned with or that we'll get funding with before? As you continue to use Plinth, you'll be able to see if you've applied for funding from them in the past, which is always helpful to kind of keep that relationship momentum going. You know, that research the funder button, nothing too crazy. It just gives you a bit more summary. But I think I'm going to do John Lyon's charity. Supports 9 London boroughs by creating opportunities to learn, grow, and develop through education. Seems reasonable to me. Oh, sorry. This was just me researching the funder because I didn't actually know too much about Eastside Foundation. So it looks like that would also work. And also helpful, deadlines are a rolling basis. So maybe I'll actually do theirs. So you hit start application. This part's a bit slow because it's linking up to a new part of the platform. I may have to type in the URL and ask you all to be patient. Yeah, it is just, it's just slow. But to be fair, it's reading a lot about the Eastside Foundation and organizing this page nicely. Before I start typing and writing, I'm just going to orient you all here because there is a lot going on, but it's all helpful, I promise. Gives me the deadline, if I'm eligible, a quick overview of the funder, my eligibility, very helpful. That was pretty easy. I'm eligible. The application process. They ask you to take an eligibility quiz and fill out an application form, how much you're allowed to spend on, and if you need to get in touch with them, their contact information is there. So it seems like a lot's going on. What people normally do is have Pippin open and then their application open at side by side, just so they kind of know what to focus on and still get a feel for the funder. While Pippin can research the funders, it's also obviously, of course, a good idea to look at their website, see what they've supported in the past, see what's interesting to them, so you can tailor your application that way. And then we're going to kind of keep up that chatting with Pippin action and ask him a few questions. You can also, before I do that, add files. So things like grant applications that have been successful in the past. Maybe if you have an impact report that highlights really positive examples, that's always good to include, just because then it's not going to hallucinate and make up an example that didn't happen. I have accidentally kneecapped a Pippin here a bit by not giving them that much information, but I can ask, can you write a statement or let's see, that was a bit long for a fairly short program. But don't think about that. The writing will start here. What's also fun, I hope I'm not going to make it mad by doing this at the same time, is you can also ask it for images, a table. Oh, there's my paragraph. Nice, that's really good. So significant gap, schools are often the primary source of arts education. And then basically it's going to keep talking to you back and forth, drafting something that is meaningful and sounds like you without, without you having to type everything out yourself and create everything you want. We did this chat feature to kind of encourage, well, not kind of, to encourage not accepting the first thing that AI says as truth. Basically, where a lot of funders, and if we have any funders on the call, feel free to jump in, tend to get frustrated with AI isn't the fact that organizations are using it, it's the fact that they all sound the same. Versus if you keep going back and forth, keep adding files, keep providing examples, It's a bit like chatting with a friend and then having a great grant application that comes out of it versus just putting it in ChatGPT and say, answer this question. That's going to give you something very boring and not very helpful to your organization as well. So yeah, if I was going to finish this application, I'd probably add a lot more things and probably have a much better idea of what needs to be funded. But my understanding is none of you have any issues with that. Give you suggested things to ask, and then kind of goads you into the right direction. So if it really is your first time writing a grant application, you'll know what to ask next. So we'll say that's all saved. That'll be saved in your Plinth section into apply. And then what's quite nice is you can have lots of things on the go. The idea is we make this quick for you, not slow. And you get to see all your applications you've submitted, were successful, failed, or are in progress, or to apply. Where's the one we just worked on? Yeah. I don't want to move it to in progress. Yeah. Gives you a nice opportunity, a nice summary there, and then you can go back and view your opportunity. So this is also really nice if you have a few people that are going to be jumping in and out and helping the organization. We also try to design things where if you have a trustee who, broadly knows what they're doing, they can at least help write some of it, or they can review what you've written. The idea is people can jump in and out, and it doesn't just become the burden of like the one CEO who's being paid very little and needs to find some more funding. That is most of the demo. I'm going to stop sharing because I saw some things pop up in the chat, but also very, oh nice, just welcomes. Very, very happy to answer any questions or show you different parts of the platform. Also very happy to give away some free weeks of it as well. If anybody's interested, they can shoot me an email.